It never occurred to me that I would feel so totally invisible. In hindsight, however, it is evident that my family had been preparing me for it for years. This dismissal started with how they treated my ideas and beliefs as if they were unimportant, the reliable one. The one who put in significant effort, kept her head down, and didn't expect anything in return had always been me. They never expressed their affection for me. I could tell by their deeds, or lack thereof. However, it was obvious that I was the reliable one. I was the one they could rely on without ever saying the words out loud. Odella Harper was my name, and I had always taken a great, perhaps excessive pride in my independence. They had trained me to be resilient and to bear the burdens of the world without ever complaining. And I did just that. I made sure my life was in order. I arrived at work every day, and I paid my expenses on time. Worst of all, I felt indifferent about it. I believed that sacrifice was the essence of existence, but everything changed one morning. Just the way I wanted it, it was peaceful. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled my nose as I sat at my kitchen table and gazed out the window at the serene Denver sky. The words, "I'm not a morning person, I'm barely a person," were written on a chipped mug, and my fingers curled around it. It was a joke from an old coworker that I had long forgotten, yet it still made me grin. It was one of those few times when everything seemed to feel typical, dependable, and predictable, until someone called something. Pushed me to answer a call from an unknown number, even though I wouldn't normally. Perhaps it was instinct, perhaps it was foolishness. "Hello," I replied, sounding more interested than I intended. The voice on the other line was almost too calm to ask, "Is this Odella Harper?" The tone made me feel nauseous. "Yes," I said, attempting to control my breathing. He introduced himself as Brian White from Liberty National Bank. "We're contacting you about an unpaid mortgage loan in your name. The account expires in 2048. I became icy. For the first time, my voice faltered as I said, "I don't have a mortgage." "Well, based on what we have on file, you were given a loan of $800,000 3 years ago. Despite our numerous notifications, the loan remains unpaid." With my heart racing, I attempted to maintain my composure as I said, "I don't know what you're talking about. I've never taken out a mortgage. I didn't even own property, and I was barely making ends meet in my little apartment. I had $800 in my checking account. Not $800, $1,000. Your name appears on each page of the loan documents, Ms. Harper, and we have confirmed your birth date and social security number." My mind raced for solutions, but I was unable to come up with any. Could the $800, $1,000 loan really be in my name? That couldn't be true. "Do you want a digital copy of the loan file sent to you?" he inquired. I sat there for what seemed like hours trying to piece together what had just happened. I was certain that my family, my blood, had done this. I ended the call, but the silence that followed was deafening. My hand shook as I stared at the phone, not scared yet, but numb. When I discovered the flyer later that day, it was one of those pre-approved credit offers from the same bank, Liberty National. I had thrown the flyer in the trash 6 months prior, unopened, and had disregarded it, but now it felt like a sign, like a perverse omen. I took care of the forms, the applications, and the fine print, and I had done it for my brother Jason when he needed financial aid for school, and for Mom when she had her hip replaced. But this was different. This was criminal. My eyes skimmed the paperwork I had saved from years of helping my family. 3 years ago, when Jason and his girlfriend Vera were discussing how difficult the market was while house hunting, I recalled Mom saying, "Family always does." At that time, I assumed she meant that they would lend Jason some money, or perhaps assist him with a down payment, but now it feels like those words have been used against me. Now it felt like those words had been used against me. My head was heavy, and I was unable to move, so I sat in my kitchen and stared at my laptop screen without opening it, watching the dust on the floor move in the sunshine like time passing away. The phone call had broken something, but what could I do to repair it? What would be the best way for me to approach them? When I contacted my mother later that evening, she answered cheerfully as if nothing had changed and said, "Did you get the pot roast I dropped off?" As if it were the most commonplace thing in the world. I tried to seem impartial as I answered, "I did, thanks." But before I could stop myself, I blurted out, "Why is there a mortgage in my name with Liberty National Bank? Silence lingered on the other end for a brief moment, long enough to make my skin crawl. As if she had been anticipating this, she added, "Oh, that. It's just paperwork." Jason needed a little help qualifying. "You weren't using your credit for anything big, right?" she asked. My blood froze as I sat up taller. "You use my name to sign for a house. It's not like you're buying anything. Jason really needed it." "You know how hard he's been working," she said in a condescending tone. The room seemed to be spinning. "Mom, you didn't even tell me." "Oh, honey, you always overreact. Jason is beginning a family and deserves this." "You're okay, Odella. You don't need it as much as he does." It was nonchalant, as if she hadn't just taken my future, my credit, and my entire identity. It wasn't about Jason needing assistance, but rather about control and taking advantage of me, since I was the strong one, the one who would never ask for anything in return. My heart sank at the thought. Though I wasn't sure what to do at the moment, I stopped the conversation because for the first time in my life, I didn't want to assist or be the dependable one anymore. My breath was short and my mind was racing. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I had to find it, so I started the process of figuring out everything they had done the following morning. I meticulously examined every saved file and document, concluding that they had exploited my name, credit and trust, treating me like a mere instrument in their arsenal. They didn't expect me to fight back, and they didn't think I would care enough to read the tiny print and check into the specifics, but I did, and I understood that was where they made a mistake. This situation was far from finished, and I refused to remain silent any longer now that I understood what they had done. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the signature line of that mortgage document, which looked exactly like mine, but wasn't. It was flawless. Whoever had forged it had studied me and practiced my handwriting until they could replicate every curve and stroke. I couldn't sleep that night because the weight of everything that had happened weighed down on me like a heavy blanket, suffocating in its silence. They were unable to disguise one thing, though. The notary stamp is present. I couldn't breathe when I saw Chelsea Bertram's name on the mortgage papers. We had been acquaintances, at best had exchanged locker combinations, and had not seen each other since high school. But there she was, a notary signing away my future as if it didn't exist. The more I thought about it, the more disgusted I became. To her, it wasn't about aiding a sick friend, but about following my mother's instructions without question. She had believed my mother when she claimed I was too sick to come in, and I couldn't get over it. I picked up my phone and looked up Chelsea on Facebook, and her profile appeared right away. I recognized the same picture from her baby's first birthday, the same innocent smile. Before I could stop myself, I pressed message and wrote out the words, "Hello, Chelsea, this is Odella Harper. I would like to know if you notarized a mortgage document for Liberty National Bank. In my name a few years ago, I didn't anticipate a prompt answer, but to my surprise, my phone buzzed an hour later. Hello, Odella. I did. Your mother told me you were ill and couldn't come in, but I didn't hesitate. I apologize if I did something incorrectly." As I read the letter, my fingers tingled. I was disgusted by her actions. She had no clue that my mother had faked my identity without my permission, or even giving me an opportunity to find out. All she saw was a sick lady who was too weak to take care of herself. Since I had trusted my family with my name and identity, I didn't reply because I couldn't. Instead, I sat there for hours staring at the discussion as the full weight of it all sank in. They had used it like a piece of paper, signing it away for their convenience. However, it didn't end there. When I opened my door at around 2 p.m. the following day, I saw a man wearing a reflective vest standing on my porch with a clipboard in hand while a tow truck idled behind him. At first, the knock felt like a reverberation of all the other times I had ignored things in my life, but it was firmer this time. He looked at me as if I were a complete stranger and said, "Afternoon, ma'am. We are here to repossess the 2020 Honda Civic. Payments are 90 days delinquent." "Is this Odella Harper?" "Yes, but I didn't buy that car," I said, blinking, as I tried to comprehend what I was saying. The man shrugged and pushed his clipboard in my direction, and the list of information was correct: my name, my birth date, and even my credit line. My voice was almost audible as I added, "That car was a gift from my father. I didn't sign anything for it. It's still in your name," he said nonchalantly, "and we have permission to take it back." As the tow truck driver tightened the wire after looping it around the car's axle, I stood there frozen in place, feeling the weight of the situation bearing down on me. My car taken away, my credit ruined, and all because my family had used me as a tool to obtain what they wanted. It was just another item they had taken from me, so I didn't dispute it. What was the point? I hadn't even begun to feel angry yet. I simply sat down on the hard concrete step, watching the car drive away while the sharp wind stung my face. I no longer owned another item. I couldn't stop thinking about the car, the mortgage, the wedding plans, the stolen tuition money, the debts, and the emotional manipulation disguised as family love. Everything they had done when I went back inside. It was about control, removing me, and treating my name as a tool. Because I was always the one who didn't require anything, and always continued giving and pushing forward. They assumed I wouldn't fight back, and that I would be fine with it, but now I was finished now. They used my name, credit, and life as if they were nothing. It wasn't just one mortgage or mistake, it was their method and strategy. I spent the next few hours going through all of my documents, including tax returns, medical bills, school forms, and a mountain of paperwork. From all the times they had asked for my assistance, after spending hours poring through documents, I decided that night that I would not allow them to get away with this, and that I would no longer be the quiet, trustworthy person. The moment has come for me to defend myself. When I opened the mortgage form again, after pulling up my laptop and logging into my email, I saw the letter from Liberty National Bank and spent a considerable amount of time staring at the signature line, observing the curvature of the O and the way the R dipped differently from mine. Everything about it was incorrect, but I was determined to show it. I would no longer allow them to destroy me. I woke up earlier than normal the following morning. The sun hadn't risen yet, and the quietness outside was nearly oppressive. I could hear my heartbeat, each thud sounding like a countdown. The quiet was a deception, and beneath it a storm was building inside of me. The car had been repossessed. My name had been used to obtain a mortgage I hadn't signed for. And now there was a list. An expanding list of incidents where my identity had been stolen and my life had been manipulated for someone else's gain. I went into the kitchen and made a cup of coffee, but I didn't drink it. Instead, I sat at the table with the mug warm in my hands and let the weight of everything sink in. I would no longer allow them to get away with this. The words were sloppy, but they were mine. I had spent hours, if not more, documenting every instance in which my name had been used without my consent, and I pulled out the yellow legal pad I had been writing on the previous evening. I listed everything. The mortgage, the auto loan, Jason's tuition, the wedding expenses, they had surreptitiously placed under my name. Everything. The more I considered it, the more it seemed like a pattern, a conscious attempt to take advantage of me. Had my mother, my brother, or my family been taking advantage of me in this way for years? I couldn't get rid of the sensation that the group was more than just my family. My stomach turned at the thought. I meticulously reviewed the documents once more and found the email from Liberty National Bank, the timestamp on the mortgage approval, to be the crucial evidence I was unconscious in the emergency room when the signature was made, and I knew I needed to get concrete proof, something indisputable to prove that they had been forging my name and abusing my trust for their benefit. However, that was insufficient. I required more. I retrieved the hospital records, including those from the night I almost died, the day I had an allergic reaction to shellfish, and the day my body had betrayed me, although I couldn't recall much of it. The nurse's notes and the timestamps all suggested that my mother had been present when the mortgage was signed, and I was unconscious, unable to move, sign anything, or even speak. She had done everything for me that she could. The operator transferred my call multiple times, and I almost gave up before someone finally answered. I then picked up the phone again and dialed the hospital, pretending to be reviewing old medical records, but I actually needed proof that my mother had signed the intake paperwork while I was unconscious. Trina, who worked in the records department, was quick to respond when I questioned her about the intake papers. She informed me it was a relative, a woman named Patrice Harper. You were brought in unconscious, and the timestamp indicates that you were out of it by 2:29 p.m. I felt the walls closing in around me. This was the evidence I needed, but I wasn't finished yet. I needed to be certain that my mother had been present and that she had signed for me on that mortgage, not simply for medical reasons. After putting me on hold for a few minutes, Trina called me back, her voice lower now. Your mom entered your room at 2:47 p.m., approximately 15 minutes after you went unconscious, and she signed your paperwork. During this time, you were completely unconscious, and someone used your signature for a mortgage. The reality slammed into me with force. I sat there for a while, simply breathing, taking it all in. I realized that I was no longer the victim of a single error. The behavior was intentional, and it wasn't just one incident. It was a pattern of abuse, a sequence of acts. I felt like everything I had known had been torn away as I hung up the phone and sat there surrounded by paperwork. I was a part of their plot without even realizing it, but I wasn't going to let this go. I walked to the restroom and stared at myself in the mirror. I didn't seem different, but on the inside, I was a new person. I wasn't the silent, invisible person who just accepted things. Instead, I was fighting back. I phoned a lawyer I knew from my previous administrative days, Sloan, who was now a legal analyst at a mid-sized company in Denver, and I knew I could trust him to help me sort through this issue. The remainder of the day was filled with uncertainty. Sloan listened. His silence on the other end of the phone was consoling, and when he spoke, it was with a quiet certainty. I told him everything. The car, the mortgage, the fraudulent signatures about how my family had been taking things from me without asking how I had always been the one who sacrificed and didn't need anything. Odella, he continued, you need to see a specialist, someone who can help you take action, someone who understands the pattern. The scheme has been going on for years, and they've been getting away with it. This isn't just a case of family fraud. It looks like a purposeful structure of identity theft. I felt his comments weigh heavily on me as I hung up the phone. It wasn't just about regaining my life or my identity. It was also about justice and letting my family know that I wouldn't be their pawn anymore. I would rather not admit it, but I felt a sense of relief when Sloan recommended a class action attorney who had experience with cases similar to mine and was renowned for being strong and unyielding. Someone was going to stand up for me. It wasn't about selflessness. It was about exploitation. As I sat in my apartment that night, I couldn't help but think of all the times my family had taken advantage of me, the innumerable times I had given, supported, and helped, and they had never once considered asking if I needed anything. This is a clear case of financial abuse, he said, tapping the file with his finger, and it's organized. You're not the first person in your family I've seen with this kind of case. This type of situation is what we call family trust abuse. I met with the lawyer the following day, Mr. Clay Browner, and he didn't hold back when he went over the paperwork. My stomach turned over. Have they done this before? This situation is systematic, but your case is significant and impactful. This isn't just a simple fraud case. This is organized fraud, Mr. Browner stated, referring to business loans, auto titles, and medical bills rather than mortgages. As I left his office, I couldn't help but think of what he had said. This wasn't just about my family. It was about all they had done and stolen, and now they were going to pay for it. Now that I was beginning to stand up for myself, they were going to learn what happens when you push someone too far. It was about everything they had taken from me piece by piece for years. It was about all the times they'd expected me to give and give without ever considering what I needed in return. It was about more than just my fight. It was about a house, a car, or a forged signature. To establish what my family had done, I spent the following several days compiling all the documentation, all the proof, and all the emails and texts. I couldn't let them get away with it any longer. My own family had been deceiving me for years, leading me to believe that I was the resilient, trustworthy, and self-sufficient individual. It felt like an unfathomable betrayal made worse by their apparent lack of concern. To them, I merely served as a convenient tool. By the time I returned to my apartment after meeting with Mr. Browner, the weight of it all was nearly intolerable. I had always been the one to keep things together, and my mother had always told me that I was strong and could handle any situation. But I now knew that strength was not about enduring their abuse. It was about standing up to them and refusing to be a victim. I had had enough of being used as a scapegoat. The following step was the most difficult. I had to contact my mother because I knew I couldn't keep acting like everything was fine, and I couldn't keep playing the part they had expected me to play my whole life. As usual, she picked up after the third ring and said, "Hey, honey, how are you? Did you get the pot roast I dropped off?" Her voice was warm and pleasant, but I knew that there was always something sinister going on behind that. I tried to maintain my composure as I answered, "I did, thanks, but I have a question for you." "Sure, sweetie. What's up?" she said, pausing just long enough for me to sense the gravity of the situation and nearly hear her calculating her response, trying to find out how to spin it. The question hovered in the air like a ticking time attack. "Why did you take out a mortgage in my name?" She remained silent for a moment, and then I heard her sigh, that deep, frustrated sigh I had heard so many times over the years. "Oh, Odella," she said, her voice shifting into a defensive tone. "It's just paperwork. Jason really needed help qualifying for the house." "Would it be possible for you to confirm if your credit is currently not being used for any significant purposes?" My heart sank as she persisted in dismissing it as if it were insignificant. "Mom, you signed for a house using my name without telling me. You know how much pressure Jason has been under. He deserves this." "Well," she continued, her voice beginning to tighten, "you're always the level-headed one, the one who never asks for anything. This is just a little thing. You didn't even need to be informed about it. Jason deserves this." Then it dawned on me that she didn't see me as a person, but rather as a resource to be exploited, a tool for her convenience. And Jason. He consistently achieved his desires, regardless of the consequences. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and she wasn't apologizing, accepting responsibility, or defending it. "You think Jason deserves a house in my name?" I said, my voice cracking with the question, but I no longer cared. I sat up taller, the weight of everything resting on my shoulders. "You're okay. You don't need this. Jason needs this more than you do." "Oh, honey, don't make your situation into something it's not. Jason is beginning a family." She had once again crossed the boundary, continuing to act as if I didn't exist, and that my future held no significance. I hung up the phone without saying anything more because I had run out of things to say. However, it didn't end there. The next day I sat at my kitchen table and gazed at the pile of paperwork that had become my life. The mortgage papers, the notice of car repossession, the fake signatures, everything they had taken from me. However, now that I had proof I had a plan, I spent the rest of the day on the phone with Sloan, my attorney. He had assisted me in gathering all the information I needed, including the fraudulent loans, the forged signatures, and the abuse pattern. He informed me that he had a contact at the bank who could assist in uncovering the mortgage fraud and that he would ensure my family was held responsible. I didn't have much hope that night, but it was enough to keep me going. I wasn't going to let them win, and I wasn't going to let them steal all I had created, and everything I had worked for simply because they believed they could. The following morning, when the doorbell rang, I wasn't expecting anyone, but when I opened it, I found something that left me completely chilled. A tow truck was parked on the curb, and the driver was holding a clipboard while staring at me with the same vacant expression I had witnessed the day my car was seized. Behind him, I could see Vera, my brother's fiancée, standing with her arms crossed and observing me as if I posed a threat. "We're here to pick up the 2021 BMW. Payments are 90 days overdue. Is this Odella Harper?" The tow truck driver made a comment in a cold voice. The home and the automobile were gone, and now they were coming for everything else, but I didn't even bat an eye. However, I was determined to stop it from happening. My credit was in ruins, the car was gone, and my family, my flesh and blood, had taken from me, misled me, and removed me from their lives in ways I never imagined imaginable. The following few days seemed to go by faster than I could have imagined. But something had shifted within me, and it wasn't just about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. It was also about letting them know that I was no longer going to be their target. They believed I would keep quiet, and they could keep using my name as if it were their own, but they were mistaken. I gathered more evidence over the course of the next few days, going through every email, bank statement, and document that could demonstrate how they had exploited me. I collected my thoughts and put everything together into a case that was too compelling to ignore. I wasn't going to let them get away with it. I had spent my entire life keeping things together and ensuring that everyone else was okay, even while I was left with the scraps. But now it was my turn. When I phoned my lawyer, Sloan, who had already begun the process of obtaining support for my case, I realized that he needed someone to attest to the history of violence in my family. That's when I thought of Soraya. She was the key to everything. Soraya Ronan's ex-girlfriend had been a part of my family for years, and I hadn't given her much thought, especially after she and Ronan split up. Like me, she had been used, deceived, and exploited in ways I hadn't even recognized until I began to view things differently. When I finally spoke with her, I wasn't sure what to expect. I wasn't sure if she would even want to talk to me, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice when she picked up the phone. It wasn't easy to reach out to her, but I knew she held the crucial pieces that could reveal my family's deceit. "Oh, Della," she said, startled. "What's happening?" With a calm but passionate voice, I added, "I need your help. I need you to tell the truth about what happened and to help me stop my family from destroying me, without interrupting or passing judgment." Soraya listened as I went over everything: the mortgage, the vehicle, the emotional manipulation, the financial abuse. And when I was finished, she gave me the words I needed to hear: "I'm in, I've got your back." She didn't just promise to help me. She had evidence, including documentation showing that Ronan had used her identity on a vehicle lease and loans that had been issued in her name without her permission. Like me, she had fallen prey to deceit, and now she would aid me in holding them accountable for their actions. As I stood outside the courthouse the following week, I felt the weight of everything that had happened to me. It was no longer just about the money, the house, the car, or the mortgage. It was about taking back my life and my name, and it was about refusing to accept the family who had exploited me for their benefit without ever taking into account the cost. With Sloan by my side, I entered the sterile, frigid courtroom where everyone seemed to be holding their breath, and I could hear my heart hammering steadily in my chest, matching the pounding in my mind. At last, it was time to reclaim what was rightfully mine. My family was sitting across from me, but I didn't even look at them because I didn't need to. Here was my chance to show them that I wasn't going to allow them to control me anymore. The judge, a lady with keen eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, called the case. When it was time for me to speak, I stepped up with trembling hands, but a firm voice, because Sloan had shown me the evidence, all I had accumulated, everything I had battled for: the falsified signatures, the illegal loans, and the emotional manipulation. I was always the one who gave, the one who helped, the one who kept it all together, but not anymore. This chapter ends today. I said, my voice resonating across the courtroom. They've stolen from me, manipulated me, and erased me from their lives without a second thought. The judge turned to my family and said, "This court recognizes a pattern of coercive financial abuse within the family structure. We hereby issue a formal warning to Maris and Harlan Maddox. Any further involvement in their children's financial activity will result in civil penalties." After I finished speaking, there was a heavy, suffocating silence, but it didn't last long. The final piece of the puzzle was realizing that I didn't need her approval anymore, that I didn't need their approval, and that I only needed myself. Her words weighed heavily on me, yet I didn't experience a sense of relief until I saw my mother's expression: cold, distant, as if nothing had happened. I didn't feel victorious or frustrated as the judge's gavel slammed down, finalizing the ruling. Instead, I felt free. I was free of the burden of everything they had attempted to place on me, including the falsehoods, the manipulation, and the guilt. I left the courthouse by myself after the hearing because Sloan had his own work to do, and I didn't need anyone else to be with me at that moment. I felt lighter as I stepped outside into the cool morning air and realized that I had finally taken charge of my life and that I had regained my identity and name. For the first time in a long time, I felt calm when I returned to my apartment. I was tired of being the reliable one, the person who always provided the invisible one, and the person who was always their fallback option. The family portrait was in the photo album that had been in my closet for years, and that I hadn't touched since I moved into my apartment. I smiled, determined not to let them forget this time, and to prevent them from taking what was rightfully mine. Although the voyage was not yet complete, it was a fresh chapter that I was writing for the first time, the conclusion.